All right. So this here is my life story. Um, from a young age, uh, at about I'd say 6 years old, um, my dad was playing basketball overseas. Um, in Germany, in Radom, Poland. That's where I was born. And we basically lived there. He was married to my mom at the time. Um, and basically, we moved to the US when I was about 5, 6 years old, like I'm saying here. Um, During that time and growing up, at that, around that, youth, pre-K, kindergarten age, at least when I was living with my parents, I noticed, a lot of, you know, um, fuck, man. Shit's hard to talk about. Um, but no, I'm gonna keep it running. I don't need to pause it. I'm sorry. But this is all on the flight, man. But I remember all of this like the back of my hand, man. The memory that I have, thankfully, thank God that I have a good memory. Even still, through everything that I've been through, it's very, very detailed and very good. So, again, this isn't to expose anyone, and this isn't to just air out anything in anybody else's life. This is just my personal experience, and this is why I'm sharing. Again, like I said in the previous clip. So if you care, I appreciate you for listening. But to continue, at 5, 6 years old, I moved to the US from Radom, Poland, where I was born. My parents, growing up, they definitely had a pretty, at least from my perspective and the things that I vaguely remember, it was a pretty, like, on the verge of divorce kind of relationship, and eventually, my parents did get divorced um, due to other reasons, which I'm not going to go all into it, but, and I don't even know the full scope or length of it all, but, they were getting divorced. And, a lot of fighting, a lot of verbal arguments, um, and that's what I refer to with fighting. My dad was never, I'll tell you one thing, my dad was never physical with, my mom, not my stepmom, ever, you know. He's physical with me, which I'll get to that way later, but, he was never physical toward women. And he was definitely honorable in that, and it still is honorable in that. I wouldn't expect him to do anything like that ever. But you know, there was a lot of verbal arguments, and it was a deteriorating relationship. From my understanding, I know that, and I've came to learn that, my mom, ended up taking on drugs, and hard drugs, at that, which she's doing a lot better now, to this day. Completely clean, has been clean for like over decades, since then. But, at the time she was struggling with drug abuse. So that played, I'm sure a pretty big factor into their splitting up. But after that, basically my dad ended up getting custody of me, and full custody, because of, my mom's drug abuse. I had a brother that was born, who my grandparents on my mom's side ended up getting full custody too. And to this day, I did have a relationship with him growing up, but to this day, currently, I probably am never gonna speak to him or talk to him ever again. I don't know, unless he seeks me out somehow and miraculously God brings him back into my life, man. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ever gonna see or talk to him ever again. And that's it's sad. It's sad that I can even talk about this and, like, not even cry about it. It does hurt. It damn sure hurts. But, you know, I can't do anything about it. It's literally out of my control. So, you know, that's its own thing, and I'll touch on that later. But, you know, that's basically my early years growing up. Um, and so, I live with my dad. My dad definitely was a pretty strict parent growing up, throughout my whole life. He was definitely a good parent, I could say. He definitely made sure that I was fed, made sure that I had good clothes on my back, I had, not good clothes, but, I had my essentials, he didn't leave me hanging out dry or anything like that. He did what he had to as a single father, growing up. I could say though that, in certain ways though, my dad was very extensive with how physical he definitely was with me when it came to punishment, along with just emotionally, um, a little bit emotionally abusive. um, I can be honest and say that, growing up, a lot of the punishments or things that I would have to do was like, it's like pick up all these rocks and these rocks in our little backyard patio, and make sure that they're all organized, like, it was just really weird shit like that, or you know like little pebbles, type of deal, like some gravel, just organize it, throw them all back, like, type of deal at like three, like, I don't know, man, like 6, 7 year old, you know. A lot of the more extensive stuff though was like, um, you know, here's a journal, 500-page composition journal, fill it all up. I will not so I will never do this again, this and this again, like, type of deal. And I'd have to have it full, like, I'm talking about the whole way full, or until maybe halfway, but I'd be writing a good 200 pages, you know and if it was really extensive to it, which I'm gonna get to, I would either, there's rare times, there's a few times definitely I could recall where he would, withhold, my dinner, or he would, I would get the belt, which was the worst of the worst. I mean, I'm sure we've all been there, but I think my thing though with that is that, like, I did notice, like, when I would get my ass whooped, I would get whooped, like, to the point where I'm talking about, like, every time I'd be trying to hold my hands back, because eventually, like, I know I'm getting fucking bruised, and I was getting bruised, and, like, to the point where sometimes I remember my ass was bleeding, like, for, very, now that I'm older, very trivial things, very trivial things, with little things that, like, a teacher would mention to a parent. Oh, they're being restless in their chair, or oh, they push somebody out on the playground, like, you know little things like that. I'm not saying that I ever did some scumbag thing like that. I definitely know myself very well. I never pushed anybody on the playground like a jerk. But, you know yeah, that was, like, pretty much my life, man. I would get, pretty bad whoopings when I would get them. um and, growing up, my grandparents on my mom's side always would try and tell me things like, oh, yeah, I remember this time, like, you had, like, a bruise, like, you had bruises, this and this. And, like, I'd be like, what? Like, that's not, like, true, type of deal. But I come to now, it's like I could see, like, maybe what they were referring to, but I think just how they worded it, they were tripping. But needless to say, you know, that was all child stuff. That's not the reason why I'm sharing this. It's just to give a perspective of my childhood. One thing that I could say is that, growing up, man, I remember multiple times trying to run away from home, feeling like my home isn't like, feeling like my home is safe, but feeling like I almost don't belong, with how I would be treated. Which is a weird thing, I feel like, to say and know, even to this day, with just the tendencies that I had personally growing up, because, it, I don't know, man, like, I had everything that really I could, I guess, ask for, but the way that I was being treated was almost like making me feel like I wasn't part of, my own family, whether that was just me and my dad, or when it was me, my dad, and my stepmom, and my siblings from my stepmom, and my dad, you know, because I have a brother and sister that I grew up with them, and that was our family, But at the end of the day, I loved, and still to this day, man, I love everyone, and I appreciate, you know, all of them in their own unique ways, But you know, I feel like right now with my dad, he is trying to be in my life, but the things that have been done in the past, it's so hard to forgive that, even though I have, and I've came to terms with that. you know I I see kind of how he's always acted and treated the aftermath of it all, and it really hasn't came from a place until more recently that he has accepted actually the things that he put me through and did, to me, and how he affected my life, you know um to this day, there's things that I have to deal with because I was never taught, or, I was never given that guidance. I was, not misled entirely, but, you know, I wasn't given, that opportunity to actually get that support, um, especially the support needed to, becoming a man, and becoming your own man in society, understanding, the world and things about it, that you need to, you know, as something as simple as like, things related to cars, to, taxes, like, I had to learn everything on my own, man, everything. um, little things about just the world and society, how to, work and keep a grown man job, and work in that type of environment, you know. A lot of little things that, we all had to learn at one point, but I think, I think for me, it was just more impactful and harder because I didn't have that example there. I didn't get to have that example there because our relationship was only built off of, you know, arguing or fights, that were not at all what anything that I wanted, or expected to just continuously continue and increase in just the, fuck, man, I don't even know the word for it, like, just increase in the overall magnitude, I feel like, of how much it impacted me. And as for my stepmom, to this day, you know it's really weird, man. Like, she won't talk to me at all now. She won't even try and reach out. She blocked me even more recently just because I have time and time again, just simply questioned or asked her, how come you just hit me up, like literally like this, like, and this is my tone when I'm texting it, like, I say this all the time, just, she'll randomly, very randomly, because it's like once a year or once every 2 years, she would just be like, oh, like, hey, come to this Thanksgiving, like, thing we have, or come to this, thing for Christmas like that we're having. And then like I only went to like one of them, you know, one year, and it was nice to see, all of that family, on my stepmom's side, and my siblings, my brother and my sister, who I hadn't seen in, a really long time, but it's like we would have never like, I don't know, it would be so random to where I just question like, why is it that you're hitting me up like once every blue moon? Like why is that? Like why are you just always like leaving me out of the picture necessarily? Like you just hit me up randomly now and are like buddy buddy. I don't know. It just like it confuses me. And so I question that, and I'm just like, hey, how come this is the case? Like how come, like I remember one of the last text messages before she completely blocked me more recently was like, it was like, hey, like come to this, like blah blah blah. And then I'm just like, how come like you hit me up and like it's so random, like you don't even like let me know anything of like how anyone's doing, like my siblings don't even talk to me, like. And that's the thing too, like I don't know if she influences that, but like it honestly seems that way because I'm just sitting here confused, you know my brother doesn't even follow me anymore on Instagram or even reach out to me, hasn't in years. My sister has never talked to me and ever wanted to. I have no idea why, and they probably won't ever, probably even if they watch this. I'm like, but I could care less, man. I could care less. The reason why I'm telling all this is because of the fact that, it's to give perspective for people that, again, they maybe have family issues as well. Maybe they, had things related to that deeply affected their life. Maybe they went through, you know, feelings of depression because of the aftermath of it all, like myself, maybe they, were so impacted that, they ended up having to be all on their own, man. And that's the reason why, again, I'll say it, man. I'm sharing all this. It's very hard to talk about, as you can tell, man. Like, it hurts. It hurts to talk about. And I think this time it hurts a lot because I'm sharing it with everyone. Anyone who sees this. This is to help, man. This is to help you people, because we're not alone. You know, we all, have had to be on our own at some point. And, even if we've gotten through it, you know, it still can affect your mental in ways of emotional, damage that it's done, even if not just physical, from how it's impacted your life, it's enough to, it's enough to hurt deep as a physical wound, man. So, you know, I'll continue with, the fact that that is, I should say, my current family dynamic, you know, um, and it's all because of, what was prior, which I'm getting into, so, uh, growing up, it was with that family, and again, growing up, my dad definitely made sure that we were all treated well. Um, I definitely was I was, first of all, I was the oldest, in my family, so I definitely had the weight of that expectation and that good example. Um, I feel like definitely to a stricter extent, being how my dad was. So he definitely made sure that, my ass was whipped in shape if I was screwing off or I was, not doing what I was supposed to. Um, but overall, um, I think things that I just did notice though is how my dad was definitely very hard on me. Definitely a lot of the times, like my grades, definitely affected him a lot. Like all parents, this is normal shit. I'm just talking about life, and how it was for me. It's definitely pretty hard on me. I think, like, a lot of the times, that I can remember at least, there wasn't really a lot of recognition for just doing average or what you're supposed to. Like, it was more like, dude, if you're doing average, then whatever. Like, if you're doing like good, then like, all right, cool. And then, like, it's like if you're doing excellent, then it's like, all right, I'm happy for you, man. Like, good job. Like, the one time that I can even specifically remember him being like super like pleased with me and like impressed or proud is like when I made honor roll for the first time in middle school. Like, and the only time that I made honor roll actually at that. Not to say that I had bad grades always, but no, like, I would just do average. Like, I wouldn't be failing. I would just do average. So, there was a lot of like, it wasn't until high school, I should say, that like it really started affecting and playing a bigger part when I relate to that in something like my education, because again, you'll see why. Um, but yeah, that was my life and my expectations. It was expectations that I do the chores, normal things, which, it's all of that was all on me, if I didn't do it, I already know what, basically, like I told you, explained earlier, that's what my punishments were pretty much. Or eventually, it would just be, as I got older, me having my things taken away, my video games, my TV, you know, things like that, man. Just ways to make my life boring and not really have much leisure, which is fine, Um, that's all normal. But I could say that there were still times where, again, like, I would notice like acts of just how my dad would get physical with me a lot more growing up at the youthful ages. It was more, I feel like, emotional abuse, like yelling at me, top of the lungs, because of some situation that happened, um, humiliating me. I remember multiple times, I could say, where my dad would emotionally abuse me, threatening to humiliate me for um, personal things that he would find or or just look through my belongings, and when it came to like my iPod Touch or you know um my own personal belongings, like my games, if you found like a rated M game or something like that, or that I'm, you know it could be anything related like that, he would threaten to like embarrass me and like say like some embarrassing stuff that nobody knows to like people, being that he ran camps and leagues and teams that he coached, so it was a lot of like, very minor, but when you really think about it, man, it's like that's fucked up to do to somebody, like, and to really play with their head and like mess with them, especially as like you're an adult and they're a kid, type of deal, growing up, still learning the world. So, I guess I just share that because it's to give you a perspective of like really what I was just growing up with around that time. And hence why I say like there were many times I remember like running to a park, like running out that, like, not even like just I bolt out the house like my dad's home, like, either like my dad left me there when like he had to go handle something or whatever, or which was not often, I'll tell you that, or you know he would be like sleeping or taking a nap and I would just slip out, and just go to a park, go to my school, whatever it was. And dude, I'd just stay there. I would stay there until, somehow miraculously, I mean, not miraculously, I'm sure he's like, oh, well, this fool just went over to his school. He doesn't know anywhere else to go, excuse me, to go. But I mean, that's basically what, you know, I would, what I would do, because that's all I knew. But I remember multiple times, him coming to find me, whether it's at a friend's house, whether it's me going to my friend's house to take me to my grandparents, on my mom's side. I did that so many times, I can't even count. Can't even count. And, to this day, coming forward, you know, I always sat there wondering, like, in my head, like, not wondering, but like, I think it wasn't until after I went through everything that I'm sharing here as adult, that I was like, man, like, that's the reason why I always tried to run away, is because I was being treated like this. And then I thought, like, man, was it like actually necessary? Like, did I have a right to do that? And then I think about it and I'm like, honestly, yeah, I did have a right to do that, because I was being mistreated. I was being, again, emotionally abused around that time, and growing up. And, if it wasn't what my dad wanted or what he said, you know, I'm getting in trouble, and actually getting a strict punishment because of it. It could be so much as like, you know, I didn't do exactly something the way my dad said I needed to do it, or like on the time that he said. If I didn't do it, man, I'm telling you, I would get one of those 3 cards, and I'm hoping that I would not get the belt. I'm like, or, get smacked on the bottom, man. Like, keep it real. Like, it was bad. It was bad. Um, and like, again, I say, like, it's not no regular ass whooping. Like, I was bleeding, like, or having black and purple ass. I'm like, it wasn't no regular, dude. Um, you know, Sometimes I got hit with that belt clip too, man. It wasn't no joke. I'm like, I'm telling you, like, only happened a couple times with the belt clip, but I remember it happened, and he did not give a fuck. I'm like, so, you know, I'm keeping it real, man. Um, I don't care. I'm keeping it real. So, needless to say, up until middle school, that's what my life was. It was very strict. You do what I say, or, you're done type of mentality. Um, but eventually, it wasn't until my 8th grade year I started noticing, like, the physicality increase with my dad. It wasn't just like, even times when I was a youth, like, and I would just be messing around, playing around with my dad, physically. Sometimes he would get like a little like more aggressive, and I never knew why. But he would. He would. I remember like times I would get hurt, and I'd be like, damn, like I was just like playing when I'm pushing you, like, and he like, you know, I don't know, just elbows me or like, something like that, and I'm just like, damn, like that shit hurt. Like, what the heck? But no, like it wasn't, again, until I was in 8th grade. Um, I just remember this one specific situation once I started seeing that happen, and it just continued to increase from there, man. So one day I came home from school, and my dad, he had like some, like, barely even like a rack of ribs, like leftovers, like this wide. um and I just like looked in the fridge, man, and I was like, man, like I'm starving, like I need to eat something. I don't know if I didn't have lunch that day or what had gone on, but there was something that happened where I didn't eat. And I just remember I just went, and I was like, well, fuck, like it's only a little bit of ribs, but My dumb ass. I knew I shouldn't have done it. But I fucking did it, right? Dumbass. Um, and I did it. I ate him, you know. And he came home, man, and he was like, he was, pretty chill, you know, checked the fridge and then was just like blitzed, man. He was pissed. He was just like, what the man? My dad never cussed, too, mind you. So, it was, I guess, polite raging, but like, he was pissed. Like when he got mad, he would get mad, I'm telling you, like, I got yelled at many times in my life, spat in my face, while he's yelling. Like, I'm talking about top of the lungs, man. So, you know, that was my life. Um, and yeah, like he basically led to yelling, damn sure right away. Why did you eat my ribs? This, and this. Um, he got pissed, man, and he came at me, and I just remember like him telling me to like basically go to my room, and I'm like about to go, and he just grabs me by the shirt and throws me, and he throws me practically, I don't know, it was kind of close to the table. I think I like bumped the table, but I fall, and then I'm like about to like go to my room, and I'm already, crying because of it all. And yeah, man, he follows me to my room, and I just remember him getting up in my face, pointing in my face, yelling at me, picking me up, slamming me up against the wall, like practically like forearm to neck up on the wall, man, just yelling at me. And I'm like just trying to hit him, and yeah, he just drops me, lets me go, and then just gets out and was pissed. And in times like that, of course I didn't want to talk to him, I didn't want to deal with him, I didn't want anything to do with him, type of deal. But there was a lot of after that, increase in, I feel like, his what he thought was like permittable to do with me when it came to like my discipline. Because after that situation, I remember almost damn near, not every time, but I remember, again, what I'm getting to, multiple scenarios where he would be okay with pushing me, grabbing me, throwing me, um, you know, uh, rare times like even just slapping me. Rare, very rare, maybe like once or twice, but I remember a couple times him bopping the mouth. But nah, man, it wasn't until, again, I feel like high school where the increase started coming along with what he would do. Um, there came a lot of fights, just due to me not following, things that he, not even not following, I should say. I shouldn't word that. Um, I would say more so it was just his expectations. Again, it was like the grades, and me getting in trouble for that, and then having nothing, and it's not like I just have nothing for a week. Like, I guess I should have said that earlier. Like, it's like if I had something taken away, it's for months, like maybe even a whole year, like it's gone. So, that's damn near how it was. I had iPod touches that I bought taken completely. I remember times he would take it, tell me he smashed it, told me he buried him, like straight up, and I'd just be sitting there like, dude, that was all my $120 that I saved from my job that I worked, and you just took it. I'm like, and did that. Okay. But at the end of the day, I was a kid, I'm older now. I look at that stuff like it's him being a jerk, but I mean, it's not anything that I'm harping about now. It's more so the physical stuff, which again, it was in high school. Um, multiple times getting thrown, pushed up, pressed up against stuff. I remember times going on, even like, I was always forced to play basketball, and follow kind of my dad's footsteps, and what he wanted me to play and do. He wanted me to be an athlete. Excuse me, he wanted me to be an athlete. He wanted me to be, um, you know, I feel like a basketball player like him. Um, and I don't think I ever really wanted that, I could say. Um, I think early on I was into it, but as I got older, it just felt like I was just being forced to like do just what he wanted me to do. Um, all my life growing up, I had people get mad at me for my dad being the coach. I had him as a coach even getting into high school, because I was transferred over to play basketball at the school that he was coaching. And it wasn't my choice. I had to do that with a couple other buddies of ours at the time. And it wasn't ever something that I feel like ultimately I genuinely wanted to do. Um, but nobody ever knew that, you know. So a lot of the people that I played with, they're thinking that, I'm there enjoying the experience, and like this is just another day I got dragged along, and I have to play this game, or I have to, you know, um, do this camp, or I gotta do this league because I don't have anybody else that's gonna be there to, you know, watch me or be with me, basically, so not like, obviously in high school I need to be watched. I'm talking about youthful years. um, but so, it was a lot of tagging along, because of the association. And yeah, so I say this because a lot of the times, man, it began even to the point where I would get dragged along to these tournaments, and I haven't even been playing basketball, and my dad's making me play this tournament because, he doesn't want me to be home, while nobody else is gonna be home, and I have to play. Even when I was starting to stop getting into basketball and just like not wanting to play entirely, you know, where a relationship was getting, pretty bad because of how physical he was being, and how mentally tough he was being on me. Um, you know, it got to the point, man, where I was like, man, like, how are people not seeing this? Like, because there were times, man, I remember getting dragged to these tournaments, and I got teammates, beginning to question, like, hey, man, like, how come your dad is like this, like, on you? Like, how come he's like, your dad's like really tough on you, But they'll be joking about it, like, not really taking it serious. But, or they just were criticizing me again because I'm coach's son and this, and this, and all this bullshit, man. I can't hold it in, All the people that gave me criticism, man, they wouldn't give me criticism to this day, knowing who I am now. I know they wouldn't have the balls to. I'm like, and I'll be honest, I say that confidently because of the fact that you don't understand, man. A lot of people, and people that played for my dad, looked at me so poorly and so down because I was his son, man. And little did they know it wasn't even my choice, and then little did they know I was getting treated like shit, a lot of the time, mentally abused, physically abused, and they had no idea, man. They had no idea I was having these types of conflicts with my dad. um and so, I had multiple times being at tournaments, there's no way that I know a specific parent that there's no way that he doesn't have a video of it, because he would always record these games and stuff, man. Who knows? It's not like I want the video, but it's just, I know it happened, man, and I know that there are parents that did see the shit that I went through. Um, and yeah, man, I had times where he threw me into some freaking benches, man, during a game, and like it's embarrassing because the whole other team's like what the heck is going on? What are they doing? Why are they fighting? You know, and it's just such a weird scenario because it looks so bad. But I remember, man, multiple times like getting thrown into benches. Not multiple times, I should say it was like once or twice, but getting thrown into some benches, man, and then going, you know, getting my jersey ripped even by him, going to the locker room, and like everybody had to just witness that, and I gotta just live with that humiliation, and then him coming back there and trying to be like, oh, I love you, man, like this is because like, you're out of pocket, but like this and this, and then like, just kind of like forgetting about it and not even like acknowledging it or acknowledging like how he was acting or what he was resulting to. So by that point I was like, man, like, all right, shit's getting like really physical. He's making me really do shit that I don't want to do, and I'm expressing to him that I really don't want to do. And he doesn't really care, man, at all. And wasn't caring at the time. And, again, that was, my life was what it was, so I just felt like I was in this box, and getting closed in more and more, just with the punishment and the expectations, that are being so high of me. And eventually, man, it got to the point where things were going on in his life that I'm not gonna mention, but it was very personal, to where, come later on, he, admitted to me that, and tried to say, that that was the reason why he acted the way that he did back then. However, the thing that, you know, is messed up about it is like, when acknowledging that, it never was like oh, I'm sorry for like doing this though, like, and I'm sorry for hurting you, I'm sorry for, you know beating your ass like multiple times, man, like, I'm sorry. It was more like oh, I'm sorry, man, like this and this happened, like it was really because I was going through all of this. And it's like, I don't know, for me, I think the hardest thing with that was that, and thing that I had to come to terms with, is that, I'm not gonna get that apology, that I wanted. I did, mind you, I did get the apology that I essentially wanted, and it's not that I needed that or I should have got that or expected that, but I should say that I felt like there was a level of recognition that needed to be at least given, to things that had happened, because my dad has beaten me inches within my life. Inches, man. Dad could have killed me if he really wanted to. And one situation in particular, man, like, I definitely could not be here. Like, I could have had my neck snapped. I'm like, I could have bled out of my head. I'm I'm like, I've had situations like this, and you know, for a time where I was just gonna leave. Like, I was gonna leave because I saw already how my dad was acting when I was giving him another chance to, mend our relationship. And I actually came back after being homeless, came back to my house, was like, hey, man, like, I'll really like do what you say, actually, for once, just so that I can get into college and do what I have to do, and you can give me, my ID and things that I need so I can individually grow my life. Gave him another chance. Fucking beat my ass. Beat my ass. Tried to throw all my shit outside of the house because I admitted that I was involved in some things at the time, while I was homeless, at that time. that I'm describing, because I was involved in some things that I'm not going to mention. However, I well, no, I'll say this. I was I was selling weed at the time, because I was trying to earn extra money when I was homeless at one period of time. This was my senior year of high school. I had already been homeless for, I'd say about 6 months, half a year, up until that point. Actually, I wouldn't say half a year. I was homeless for about like 3 months up until that point. Um, but I basically um, was able to find someone who, um, you know, they had work available, and I ended up, selling weed for them, to earn extra money on top of the job that I was already working, and that was the reason behind it all, was because I was working at a grocery store at the time. I didn't make enough money there. I was getting minimum wage back when it was like 15.45. Um, and shoot, I was actually shoot, it might have been like 12.50 around then. I'm not even tripping. I'm like, I think it might have been 12.50. But yeah, basically that was that was the reason behind it all. And my dad, I revealed that to, because somehow he had found out. I think because, honestly speaking, my school had told them, because I know that my school was, I will say they were getting like pretty suspicious of like the things that I was involved in, um, for other circumstances. But uh, yeah, basically, he found out, I think, about that, or heard about that somehow, and he ended up questioning me. And I told him that I was already on my verge of getting away from it all, and away from those people. Um, but yeah, basically, he found out, and I missed a day of school because I, needless to say, I couldn't go to school that day. And yeah, it was that bad. And yeah, I couldn't go to school or I was dead, basically. And I revealed that to him. And his response to that was, that my job, when I came to him, like trying to make amends, was my job was to go to school, work, if I had a job, which I didn't at the time. Well, I did, I was working at the grocery store. But work my job, which I think I say that because I was on the verge of being done with that job too, just because I was focusing on graduating, through being homeless at that time. I was getting help, and I got help my senior year from many different people, um, you know, ex at the time, um, you know, and their family, which I'm very thankful for. I am. Everybody that I've gotten help from, friends, who let me sleep in their cars, like many different people, but a lot of the times I was sleeping outside, man. I was sleeping at park benches, my school, just little plazas, on the floor, dude, like with my blankets. Like that was my life, man. And I carried everything in some bags, uh, my basketball bag, freaking big old duffel bag. Like that was my life. Um, Once I left my house, and prior to that, and prior to leaving, and to circle back here, the reason why I say all this is because, that build up to that point, um, my dad, again, he was getting very physical, to the point that, our relationship completely changed because of it all. Um, with the situation that I'm sharing right now, man, like after him finding out, you know, the things that he did, he ended up throwing all my stuff outside because of what I told him. He didn't care at all of what I told him, that I would be dead if I went. He just proceeded to throw all my stuff outside my backpack. He was going for my duffel bag next, and he ripped already the strap of the backpack. And that already got me like, okay, no, like, you're not gonna rip any more of my stuff. I'm carrying that on my back, man. And I have damn near a year and a half now, like, on my own. Like, you're not gonna rip my stuff. So I tried to go and grab my stuff and just leave, because I was just gonna go back out there. And my siblings were asleep. My stepmom was awake and like trying to get us to stop. And I had a cousin at the time who was staying there with them that summer. And I remember my dad like fighting with me, then getting me in a headlock because he's trying to not let me grab my bag, and trying to like yank me, pull me outside. My cousin was trying to stop him, and like I'm trying to get him off of me, because he's got me just right here, just big brothering me, pulling me toward outside. And I'm like trying to get him off me. I get him off, and he like had pushed my cousin. Even my cousin's getting all frantic, like mad about it. And my dad, he pulls me outside, out to the front door. We had this stone patio walkway to our driveway, and he straight up flipped me over, man. And like he tried to get right to the grass, but he didn't get close enough, and he flipped me over, man. Like judo flipped over the shoulder. I went over and landed, still with me in the neck, full body, into the ground, man. I remember just hearing all these pops in my neck, man, and thinking that my neck was broken. It wasn't broken, but I definitely got fucked up. I was bleeding out of my head, and I had just some really big fucking hematomas, man. Um, I would say that I was in definitely a post-concussion state, because I was non-verbal practically after the whole, like, once I got off of the adrenaline rush that I was on, because after the matter, you know, I had my whole, dispute with my dad there. I got up and I was grabbing my bags to leave, for good, and walk basically back to that ex's house that I was basically staying at here and there, at the time. And because their family was the one who told me, hey, like, go back to your dad, see if you can honestly, um, make amends, with him, just so that you can, get the things that you need, even, your ID, your social security card. Like, that way you can work, at least, even if you don't choose to, go to college. um, they're really trying to help me like find options and know what to do with my life, at least, which again, to this day, I'm really appreciative of, um, and I'll never forget. But yeah, basically, you know, I'm bleeding out of my fucking head, and I had to walk my ass all the way from my house to that ex's house with my bags, like bleeding out of my head. My cousin was like following me a quarter of the way there, like, hey man, what are you gonna do? Like, what, like, what's your next move? Like, I think, and honestly, he was looking out for my dad because he knew that he fucked up, but basically, I walked my way back there. you know her uh her mom and her aunt and uncle came out, saw me, all messed up, and they basically ended up taking me back there. Well, her mom took me back there, scolded my dad for everything, threatened to basically call the cops or ambulance, to come and get me, or she was going to take me to the hospital and explain what happened, and basically made my dad take me to the hospital himself. So my dad ended up taking me to the hospital. He ends up um, lying basically to all the doctors that were there of what happened, and basically said that I was out of control, and was basically things that he had described of me before, to other people, like with things that would happen. Oh, he's out of control. Oh, he doesn't listen to me. Like, and he ended up doing this reckless action, like blah blah blah, like making up just straight up lies, dude, about what would actually be happening. And I remember specifically one doctor when they were like scanning me for damage, Well, I don't know what scan it was, man, but I don't know, MRI maybe something, But I just remember being on the table, man, and this doctor was like, you know, this just doesn't seem right. Like you can tell me like what happened, and like I literally couldn't tell what happened. Not even because of just like what was physical. Like I literally couldn't open my mouth because of the pain that I was in, and because I got really messed up, from that incident that I'm referring to. But yeah, man, I just remember this doctor being like, yeah, like, you know, I don't feel like that your dad is telling the truth. Like, you can just tell me, like it's okay. And like, I didn't tell her anything. I didn't tell her anything at all, you know. And that was the one opportunity out of all the times I had this happen multiple times, with either cops, with teachers, with you know, um, parents, like multiple different times where I could have told, never told, but the one time that I could have, I, excuse me, I should say I did tell, with, you know, cops or, with, teachers, friends, parents, where I would tell, but, you know, nothing would ever happen, you know. My dad would play the same, like, oh, I love my son. What? Like, he's out of control. He's like crazy. But the one time where I had the opportunity to, never said a word, man. Never said a word, and I could have, but I didn't, and I'm not hanging myself over that, but at the end of the day, you know, things happen for a reason, you know. I'm not, again, saying all this to bash anyone. I'm telling my story so that people can relate, and the people that do relate, if it's me they're sharing, their experience with, you know, then I'm appreciative just as much as I hope they appreciated what I was able to share. Because it's not easy, man. It's not easy to go through the things that are related to emotional or physical abuse, whether you're growing up, whether you're an adult, already.